Hi, and welcome to Piano Teaching Success Q&A. I'm Gillian Erskine, and together with my colleague Paul Myatt, we've created this program for piano teachers around the world to inspire you, uplift you, and make your job a little easier as we explore our passion for teaching piano. By now, our colleagues in the US and the Canada and UK and US and Asia have all been back teaching for a couple of weeks, so I hope it's going well for you guys. And in the next week or so, we in the Southern Hemisphere will be joining them as school starts up again and we get back into our year two. Well, over the holiday season, we've been sharing some of the highlights and your favourite segments that we've created especially for you. So welcome to the last in our holiday series. Today, we're going to look at the number one frustration of piano teachers around the world, and that's getting kids to practice. We thought you might like to kick off your new year with some fresh ideas on getting your students to practice this year and love it. Let's start with why piano practice is such a drag and what you can do to change it up in your studio this year. So let's just take a moment here and look at practice in general. It's a big topic and there are just so many factors, but if we just break it down to the basics. Paul, what do you think are the three main factors or challenges around practice in general?
Oh, I think the first one would have to be the loneliness of it. And because, for most students, they're practicing by themselves. So they have to be self-regulated and self-monitoring. And, it's lonely. And, there's no surprise that most students are more likely to play the things that they can play rather than practice the things that they can't.
Yeah, I always did. So it's a wonder we all got through it. Yeah, it's kind of hard doing the boring stuff we aren't good at too. What about,
Yes.
what's the second one?
Well, boring, of course, the boring stuff, because practice does require repetition, and also self-analysis. So we want to, they want to ask, we need a child or a student to ask themselves, did I do that correctly or not? Or where did I make a mistake?
Yeah. So do you get, and you also find that repetition generally is excruciatingly boring, unless you're really focused on stuff. What's the third thing?
Well, I find, I don't know about you, but I know I have previously had a lot of kids say, I just don't remember how it goes when they go home, and they just can't remember what it's supposed to sound like when they're at home.
So how do you solve these issues?
Well, there's many different ways of doing things. The one solution I've come up with that I think works really well is using backing tracks when you teach, and it solves quite a number of those issues. And my students have been using music to take home for many years. In the olden days, we used to use CDs.
Oh, well, cassettes, and even in the olden days.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've been doing this at Forte for like 26 years, haven't we? All our kids do that.
We have, and they've always been able to play or practice along with the music at home. So, but today we've got this amazing technology, and at Forte we have our interactive Practice Buddy at home, which plays the tracks as well as being able to slow them down or speed them up, which we could never do with cassettes or CDs.
Yeah,
So,
we always did it in class because we had MIDI file players and what have you, but kids couldn't do that at home. But now they can.
Exactly.
So let's go to one of Paul's classes playing scales, and it should make more sense of what we're saying. Let's unpack that one. So how does backing tracks solve the main challenges of getting kids to practice?
Well, I suppose the first one, it stops the loneliness, because once they start playing along the tracks, they generally keep playing. And I've had parents often say to me that kids will sit down and play for ages when they're playing along with the Practice Buddy. The challenge is always to get them started, but once they do, it sort of draws them in because, and of course now with the technology, every kid loves screens, and so that sort of solves a little bit of the lonely and the boring.
And the some of the self-regulation thing too. So many times with the backing tracks, they go, oh, they do it at 80, and then they go, oh, I'm going to try and do it at 90. So they start to sort of looking at their own personal best and seeing whether they can sort of move it up, don't they?
Absolutely.
So the other part of loneliness, or the solo nature of practice, is the self-regulation and self-monitoring. So how do you find backing tracks help with that?
Well, I don't think there's anything we can do for self-regulation. At the end of the day, a child's got to get to the piano, and that's the first challenge. And well, you're a mum. You've both your boys played, and I know that one of your strategies was to get them to play one thing.
Yeah, in some of the very early stages. Well, early stage, because we've done early baby music and what have you, but in the early stages, after about 4 years, and we were doing some keyboard ones, yes, it was like, just go to the piano and play one thing. And they'd look at me and go, what, one thing and then I'm done? Yeah. And they went, this is like a deal I can't refuse. That just got them there. But it's just that strategy, isn't it? Just to get them there. Just do one thing. Just the practice, the fact that they actually got there, I think was a really good thing.
Exactly. So, with the self-monitoring, I suppose with the, if you're using backing tracks in your lessons, when kids, you're teaching the kids how to hear and to play in time. So that builds really critical listening skills. And so when that gives them the opportunity to use the backing tracks at home, and make, and they're really useful then.
It certainly does help them play in time, because he's at that little cameo that we just saw then, the kids were in a class absolutely playing in time. And we've found that, haven't we, over the years, that playing with backing tracks, they don't ever really have any timing issues, because they know how it goes, and they're used to playing with what is really the most musical metronome of all, right?
Exactly.
Well, Sophie Fredericks found that when she used backing tracks, when she went into lockdown earlier this year, she was instantly lost the opportunity to teach the kids that she had at school. So she has a mixed practice where she teaches some students at a school and her own home studio. But the ones that she had at school, the school went, no extracurricular activities, no one can do it. So that really worried her, because she had planned to put some students for exams. So what she did is she bought a student pass for each of her students. And I think 4 out of 5 of them just took to it like a duck to water and just learnt their scales really well, completely on their own. She was delighted with. So why do you think one of the backing tracks are good also for beginners when they're starting out, Paul?
Well, the most important thing is that they can adjust the speed. And because obviously when they're starting off, being able to play at a slower rate, but they're still playing in time, really makes a difference. So when you're using any backing track, the ability to slow them down really makes a huge difference. And there's lots of ways of doing that too.
I think one of the great things about Practice Buddy is that the default speed is actually the exam speed. Like, how many times when you have to constantly get the manual out and go, what speed do we have to have this for the exam? and the goal speed's there right in front of them, isn't it?
Absolutely. So in Practice Buddy for exam scales and technical work, it just makes such a difference because they know what they've got to do.
Yeah, exactly. So the slowing down so the kids are competitive with themselves. We just talked about, how they will. In fact, we've got a little video of that, which a while back. But you're teaching one of your students, Julia, and she went, "Oh, can I play that slower?" She knew that she didn't want to play at that speed. And then after a while, when she felt she could do it, she went, "Oh, can we do it at 80 or whatever?" So yeah,
exactly.
see them doing that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I think it builds also that intrinsic motivation. So they're, we always talk about when children start off extrinsic motivation, and we want to move towards intrinsic motivation. And I think this really, that speed, let's play it at 70% to start with. And, can we go to 80%, and then, 90%, and then 100%. Oh, can I do 110? The number of boys that come back and go, Mr. Paul, I can do it at 120%.
You think, well, that's great, honey, but we really don't want you playing it that fast.
But that you've built in that intrinsic motivation, because it's making it fun as well.
Yeah. It's that also that sort of sport thing of the PB, the personal best.
Wow, kids, how many kids, if they're, for example, they're playing cricket, bowling, how many times do they have to practice bowling, and they keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And we need exactly the same thing in music.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's move on to boring. What makes practice boring?
It's the repetition.
Well, it's just endless, it's repetition without a purpose, really, isn't it? I've got to play this 3 times. All right, 1, 2, 3, without really keeping the brain into gear on it.
Exactly. And, when you've just got that repetition for repetition's sake, there's no real, you just go on automatic pilot sort of thing. And
brain disengages, doesn't it, sometimes?
Exactly. So when we've done the tracks for our Practice Buddy, we've always, certainly with the scales, we're doing them 3 or 4 times. So you can do different things with each one. So you might do right hand, then left hand, then hands together, but you might just do all right hand or all left hand, or, or mix it up. So you're starting to really get, making it more fun as well.
Yeah, it makes a variety. And I think we've got some flashcards in each one of them too, that you can play this flashcard. So it's another way of making the brain become engaged, isn't it? And you can build in some game-based learning, right?
Yes, gamification is one of the best ways to get children engaged with the learning. And, the fact that they have to sort of come in at the right time is really important.
Because all of our tracks have got introductions. They're not a click track. It's not a click track. They've got to listen. I come at the right time. So it's sort of like skipping rope. The skipping rope, the skipping. And now I'm going to come in.
Yes, exactly. And then you can add more gamification too, as well. Lots of different things that you can add.
Okay, so we've got a clip of you showing how to turn up the gamification with scales. This is one with you're doing it, isn't it? Let's see that now.
It is, yes.
So why is an activity like this so good, other than being really fun?
Well, there's a number of different things. The first thing I'll start with is keyboard geography. So they have to find the note on the piano to start with. So I don't know if you noticed, I was doing one ascending scale and then one descending scale with the same hand. So they had to start on a C. I had to start on a C, and then I had to use a different finger to come down on the C, but in the same spot. So that's really, really important.
You also ran around the stool in a different way, different times, didn't you?
Well, yes, I'll tell you why, because you start to get giddy if you go the same way.
Yeah, that is best. Okay, well, what else is good about doing an activity like that?
Well, it resets the brain. each time, and the brain doesn't get bored. So, and we're using both sides of our brain as well. So, all the movement, and we have to go then and find the correct note. And our brain requires oxygen, and that comes from red blood cells. And when you are moving, you have an elevated heart rate. So yeah, moving is really good.
Well, Cecily liked it. Cecily Morgan's on with us today, and she went, "Hey, it seems like so much fun." It is.
Exactly. And they also, obviously you want them to play evenly throughout. So maybe, you may not be able to start at the full speed, but they can build up to it as well. They're also going to be playing in time.
Mm.
And most importantly, I think it's listen and come in on time.
Mm. Exactly. Well, the three main challenges of getting students to practice anything, and in particular scales, is loneliness and the self-monitoring, the boringness of repetition, and remembering how it's supposed to sound, which are all solved really by using backing tracks. So let's just tell everyone how we came up with this idea.
Well, I teach a lot of students. I used to teach 120 kids a week, and the majority of them doing piano exams. And I've always used, or at Forte, we've always used backing tracks, but of course we never had backing tracks for scales.
No.
And it was driving me nuts. And 6 weeks out from the exam, I'd be having panic scale practice days, 2 hours on the weekend, and make all the kids come in. And it's one of the reasons I started doing the tracks for the scales, because we'd always use the tracks with pieces, and it worked really, really well. And I thought, oh, maybe this will work with scales as well. So I came up with the concept of developing the tracks, and then we've put them in together in the Practice Buddy for scales and technical work.
And the kids have loved it. So we thought, well, how useful would this be to all piano teachers? Because we're all facing the same challenges, getting kids ready for exams. So we went crazy. And we put
did.
we put them together for 5 syllabuses. Is that right?
Yes.
The ABRSM, Trinity College, the 2 AMB syllabuses, and ANSCA, and Royal...
And Royal Conservatory. So it's actually 6.
Well, the hardest things to teach is broken chords. And Paul put this clip together on how to teach broken chords. We played it last week, but it's so good. We'd like to show it again.
Broken chords are used in many exam syllabi in the early grades. They can be a real challenge for many students because they often use the wrong fingers on the wrong notes, and they can't remember the finger patterns because they're different on both the right and left hands. There's often a lot of tension in their playing, and they require constant repetition to achieve fluidity of movement, rhythmic evenness, and a legato touch. I'm going to share with you a way to teach broken chords that will offer you and your students success from the very first lesson of teaching this concept, using whole body learning strategies and backing tracks. And the bonus benefits of doing this, lots of repetition, which means they start to get good at it. Singing and speaking, meaning they use more senses when they're learning, and this helps to improve memory function and, of course, build oral development, which means they're going to play in time and develop a better ear for music. First of all, you'll want to get the chord shapes into your students' hands. With the Practice Buddy backing track, have your students play a root position chord up the piano along with the music. Each exam track on Practice Buddy has 3 speeds. Your student can start with a lower practice speed and work up to the full exam speed. You can also adjust any track's speed by percentage. Before playing the inversions of A minor along with the track, like we did with the root position, use the Broken Chord kit to show your students how to work out the inversions. You can see I'm moving the lowest note letter up an octave to show the first inversion and then the second inversion of A minor. Now your student has a visual understanding of the inversion. Ask them to play each of these chords with the correct fingers on the piano and then along with the backing track, just like they did for the root position chord. Once your students know all three inversions with the correct fingers as individual block chords, use the Broken Chord kit to work out which inversions play using the same fingers and which use different fingers. Use the green numbers when you use your second finger. I suggest you introduce one hand first and then play the block chords in that hand along with the backing track. Once your student is confident with playing the block chords along with the backing track, break each chord inversion up one at a time and play along with the backing track like this. All that individual chord playing may take a little time, but I can assure you the outcome will be so strongly embedded in your students' neurology and muscle memory that they will rarely make a mistake. Also, learning other broken chords becomes so much easier. This teaching strategy will definitely set your students up for success in playing broken chords correctly, and it will also help your students with better keyboard geography skills, improved rhythmic skills, improved listening skills, and offer your students an auditory experience of keys. And then there's the beginning to develop some of the skills for collaborative playing, and they are sympathetic playing, listening to an introduction, coming in on time, and of course playing together in time. The Practice Buddy is available at Piano Teaching Success.
Thank you, that's great. Well, if we back up a bit, ideally before you've taught broken chords, you've probably taught some basic chords. So let's look at how to start teaching chords to beginners and to anyone really, and then how we move on to lead sheets. So the main challenges really is knowing, for if you have never taught chords, or even if you have and you've had a bit of a disaster, or it's been a bit lumpy and not exactly flowed very well. So the main challenges is knowing like how to start, which chords to teach first, and what position to play them in. Because if you just do them all in root position, they sound chunky and not very nice. And it's just really, really hard to play. And then how to segue into playing with lead sheets. So Paul, would you outline the step-by-step process that we use?
Sure, Gillian. So step one is to start with chords and relating them to scales or pentascales. Now, that can be really boring without a backing track. So having music to play along with really gives it some context.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the step two?
Well, you want to break them away from the music because they really need to get the chords in their fingers. So to get them thinking in patterns before they think of moving on to lead sheets. So they really need to know those chords really well in their fingers before they move on to playing with lead sheets. And the way to do that is we use flashcards to do that.
We do. Well, Paul, you put together a bit of a video example on how to do this. So let's have a look. Okay, let's just unpack that a little bit. How does the flashcard relate to what you were playing?
Right. Well, let me show you. So the first thing you can do is, so this is the flashcard. So the red circles are the scales or notes, and the green circles are the chords.
Mhm.
So in the first one, you're playing right-hand notes and left-hand chords. So it's set up in the same way as music would be, so in a grand staff. So the second one is left-hand chords. And then the third one is just right-hand notes. And the last one is right-hand chords and left-hand notes. So to get to that sort of combo stage, that actually takes a lot of practice.
It's pretty tricky.
It is. And, this is just a simple pentascale. And imagine what you can do if, when you start using whole scales where you're playing chord 1, chord 4, and 5, 7.
Yeah, exactly. So what's step 3?
Well, of course, it's playing. So in lead sheets, it's playing simple songs that they've already played or at least heard that have a limited note range. And it's really important that they can play the right hand with ease before trying to combine the chords in the left hand. So you don't want them to have to focus too much on the melody and being concerned about what the right hand is playing.
Yeah, exactly. So really to get them to segue them from the chords and into that. So the first thing is to get them playing the chords and like with pentascales so they know what notes go with what chords. And then breaking them away from the music. So because that's what they have to be. They have to be broken away from the music if they're going to be able to play with lead sheets. They haven't got any dots to read. So they've got to start thinking in patterns. And then the third thing is to do something where the melody is kind of a little bit on remote control so that they can still focus in what they're going to be doing in the left hand. So you've put together a little bit of video on this.
I have. This is the lead sheet pack that we've created for beginners. So I'll just share with everyone what it's about.
We've put together a lead sheets starter kit for you. It's available from Blackrock Music Shops in Australia and the UK, and it's just $7 Australian or £4. The lead sheet pack includes 13 well-known songs, chord playing styles and endings, and of course worked examples to assist you and your students. It's studio licensed, so you can print these off as many times as you like in your studios. Songs include London Bridge, Twinkle Twinkle, Ode to Joy, Jingle Bells, This Old Man, Pop Goes the Weasel, Chopsticks, For He's a Jolly Good Fellow, Lavender's Blue, and more. The Lead Sheets Starter Kit can also be your free bonus when you purchase the Piano Fundamentals Practice Buddy at Blackrock Music or Piano Teaching Success. It's just $31 Australian, £18 or $25 US. To use the teaching strategies we've shared today, you're going to need backing tracks that have the correct version of the scales and technical work for every different exam syllabus. Luckily, Piano Teaching Success Practice Buddy has exactly that. Your students can get a Practice Buddy Student Pass, which has everything your student needs to excel at scales, broken chords, and arpeggios. The adjustable speed backing tracks are set at exam speed and can be slowed down in the early stages of learning. Tracks have been harmonically constructed so that fragment learning and repetition is built in. That means you can teach just one concept. It might be playing one fragment of a scale, broken chord, or arpeggio so that your student can repeat that one thing several times as the track plays. Repetition. Playing with backing tracks makes it so easy, but shh! Your students will be having so much fun they won't even realise. Being able to see the full list of exam scales in one glance gives your students and their parents a really good idea of how much learning is needed to be exam ready, and as teachers we know how important that is. The downloadable Fast Track Scale Kits have many ways for students to learn their scales, which means every student's learning style is catered for. Everything from fingering charts and full colour graphical notation to flashcards and success charts will help you and your students keep track of what they're up to. This whole body learning approach makes scales and technical work fun for all learners in a multi-sensory way. When you use Practice Buddy in your studio, you'll be teaching scales like an expert. When your students are playing along with Practice Buddy at home, in no time at all, they'll be playing like an expert and having fun. Teachers, you're going to want to access all the levels, so we've bundled together the student passes for each exam syllabus together in your own special teacher pass. Any of the passes can be purchased in one of 9 currencies, and student passes are great value in your currency for just £19 in the UK or $31 in Australia. The teacher bundle is amazing value at £77 in the UK or $127 in Australia, and they're all available at pianoteachingsuccess.com. Practice Buddy is the best way to learn scales, but if you've used it with your students and you don't like it, let us know in 7 days and we'll give you a full refund. The Practice Buddy is available at Piano Teaching Success. So what are teachers saying about the Practice Buddy? Well, Heather Watson from Perth says, students immediately pay more attention when I produce the scale backing tracks. I'm using them right from the beginning of introducing scales. It helps establish a steady beat from the outset. We often just listen and tap along before even playing. It's also easier to discuss major and minor modes while listening. And Mary Ashenden from Adelaide says, I love having everything easily accessible in each grade for each exam and not having to go and check the exam syllabus all the time. So if you'd like Practice Buddy for you and your students, check it out at pianoteachingsuccess.com and click on the Practice Buddy link.
As you know, Paul and I are fans of developing the all-round musician so that they can have skills like chord playing, improvising, playing by ear, playing by memory. And we were delighted to have Lucinda Mackworth-Young, who has a passion to teach everybody to play by ear and improvise spontaneously, in time, anywhere, no matter their musical experience. Lucinda really breaks this down for us, and I'm sure by the end of this segment with Lucinda, you'll be feeling, hey, I could do that too.
Lucinda Mackworth-Young, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for this copy of this book, Piano by Ear. It's brilliant. It's one of the most wonderful examples of work for teachers and to get teachers who have classically trained playing by ear and playing with chords.
Exactly. And thank you so much. I know we're on exactly the same wavelength here and have been, I've just been discovering since the 1990s.
Exactly. So how did you come by creating this book? What made you do this?
Very simply, I was, as we all are as piano teachers, keen on piano at school, passed my grade 8 ABRSM exam very well, and couldn't play anything other than my set pieces if I had my notation with me. And it was mortifying. And I thought, no pupil, no teacher should ever be in that position. And it is so simple, isn't it? It's just a question of incorporating the teaching of chords into our pupils' lessons from the very beginning in a logical and systematic order.
It is. That is literally all it is. And of course, one of the things about learning music is, music is rhythm and melody and harmony. But I think harmony is really, really important because as soon as you've got more than 2 notes, you've got implied harmony.
Yes. Yes, and it's wonderful fun and a great thing to feel part of your family, your community, with your friends, if you can just strum a couple of chords while everybody else sings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it can start as simply as, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or Mary Had Little Lamb. And kids love to do those sorts of things.
Mary Had a Little Lamb only has 2 chords. Mary had a little lamb. And these songs can all go on simultaneously.
Mm.
And when we move on to 4 or 3 chords, then, as I'm sure you know, the great 3-chord progression is the one that goes, when all the saints go marching in, when all the saints go marching in, oh, how I want to be in that number, when the saints go marching in, swing low, sweet chariot, and so on. That can be sung simultaneously. And also, I'm gonna sing, 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 I'm gonna dance, dance, dance. And although these are not the pop tunes, which again is very easy for children to learn, but pop tunes go in and out of fashion. Children have to learn somehow, somewhere to be able to accompany simultaneous songs at once. So we can use these traditional songs just to teach them how to do it, how it goes. But at home, for example, you just learn the chord progression for Jingle Bells and you've got something meaningful at Christmas time. Or you learn the chord progression for Happy Birthday and have a nice drum roll at the start. And that's the starting note for Happy Birthday to you, Happy Birthday, and so on. And it's just such fun. And you feel like you're a proper musician. And
That's right.
The other thing you can do while you're teaching them all these songs, which of course are all in piano by ear, is that you can get your pupil to sing the bass. So 1, 5, 5, 1, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. And for the teachers who are saying, but that's much too low, of course it is. You need to do it in F major for most children. 1, 5, and so on. 5, 1. And you can teach them the way around their keys. And of course, as you know, if you teach them C, E, G, and then chord 4, first of all, you must teach F, A, C, because you must understand the root position. But then C, F, A, cakes for all. And then you teach chord 5, first of all, in root position, and 5, 7. And then you put it into a position that works from the C position, so that's B, F, G, big friendly giants. So then we have our C chord, cakes for all, big friendly giants. And then you've got the chords that you can transpose into other keys. I believe at forte piano you teach G major before F major, very sensible indeed. F major is a much more complicated one. But then of course, as we both do, you can go into your minors. Although the lovely thing about minors is that you can use the chord on the flattened 7th. So a lovely progression. G, F, then E minor, which you can make minor or major. I like the melancholy sound of the minor. And this is a lovely chord progression where your pupils can join in all at once, doing group improvising, where some pupils just hold the bass in a single line, other people do it as a waltz, and other people improvise in a 5 fingers position. And as you know, who teaches improvisation so much, if you give them a confined thing to do, they're freer to explore. So start off with just this chord progression, moving to precisely this pulse. Could be 2 chords, could be 3 chords, 4 chords maximum. And then this 5 finger position only, nothing else, not allowed to use anything else. And then when they're really confident and they're able to hold the pulse, because that's the key, isn't it? Hold the pulse, hold the harmonic change, hold the harmonic rhythm. And then you make a musically satisfying improvisation, and it's all so simple.
It is. And I think that for a lot of teachers who haven't had that experience, you know, just working through your book as a almost like a tutor book for teachers is a great way to start, because it really will give you great ideas of an understanding of how to do this, because it isn't actually that hard.
It's so easy. And I think you need to bear in mind that you're not so much slaving through the book, is you're thinking to yourself, what do I want to do on the piano? Okay, I want to accompany some songs. Grandpa's birthday's coming up, I want to do that. Or Christmas is coming up, I want to do Silent Night. Or I want to be able to sit down at the piano in anybody's house and make a good sound spontaneously. And or I want them all to be able to join in. So
Yes.
Another really good trick is if we play a 12-bar blues accompaniment in E flat, for example. And I remember going to teacher training college and learning about the 12-bar blues. Never heard about them before that, which is a little shocking, really, isn't it? But if you know a really good 12-bar blues progression, chord 1, chord 1, chord 1, chord 1, chord 4, chord 4, chord 1, chord 1, chord 5, chord 4, chord 1, chord 1, and you get your friends, either children or adults, simply to improvise on the black notes, everyone can make music together. So the whole room can join in on piano games.
Yes, it's just brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing.
It's such a pleasure.
Well, Lucinda's play-by-ear book is available at our Blackrock Music stores in the UK and Australia. We'll put a link to that fabulous book in the show notes. And that's it. That's all we have time for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with our first live show of the year. So excited. I can't wait for you to join us. Remember, you can join our watch list and receive the episode straight to your inbox, or you can catch the replay in our Facebook group, pianoteachingsuccess.com. In the meantime, there's 3 ways you can send us questions or ideas for topics. You can send us an email, you can post it in our Facebook group, or you can click the Ask a Question button on pianoteachingsuccess.com. I'd like to thank Paul Myatt, who has been producing today's show and is responsible for all the videos and behind-the-scenes tech. On behalf of all of us, stay well and we'll see you in 2 weeks.